All right, let's talk back of the shoulder blade pain, and then we'll get into hip pain. So I wanted to show you the muscles and the different layers and then the nerves that I had kind of referred to and some of those joint structures that I was talking about. So you're probably very familiar, obviously, with big upper trap over here and the delts. I'm going to go deeper and take a couple of those layers off. So the rhomboids, those are used a ton in climbing because that's what pulls that shoulder blade back. So when you're pulling yourself up and you're having to kind of do that rowing motion, it's obviously at a little bit of a different angle when you're climbing because you're reaching overhead. Just wanted you to be aware of these because you did have quite a bit of tenderness right there along your rhomboid area. You were also pretty tender and had a big old knot up here in your levator scap. So most people tend to carry a little knot right here at the top corner blade of their shoulder blade. Why that tends to be, so levator helps to lift your shoulder blade up, but it also turns your head and helps side bend your head. But frequently in a postural stance where you'll see people kind of rounded forward, when it's rounded forward, you end up using muscles a little bit differently and tension changes and things like that. But we tend to really overuse upper trap that I just took off, and we tend to really overuse levator. So the other point with levator is that if it is something that functions to turn your head, but you're doing a ton of overhead reaching, you can kind of picture that if you were moving in that type of a position, well, it's showing it to you underneath the levator or the upper trap. So if it would be doing this, you can see how if your arm was raised up, it would be putting that muscle on a stretch. So there's a couple of different reasons. I just wanted to show you where it is though, but it attaches to side of the neck and comes down to top of the shoulder blade. Now, as far as nerves go, and we are going to look at a deeper level here already, we'll go back. Okay, so you also have this long line of muscles that goes all the way tailbone up into the neck area. You were pretty ropey when I was going side to side, so that's how I kind of differentiate what I'm on, is that, again, if you look at direction of the fibers of your rhomboids, they would feel more ropey going up and down. If it's a lot more ropey feeling side to side, a lot of times it can be these muscles that come up and attach to the ribs. So just giving you an overview. Now, over in here, this guy is the one that I was on that was pretty darn tender and referred over to your bicep. So its pain referral goes all the way around this way and comes down. Let's throw on some muscles and nerves. Okay, so anywhere that you see this yellow, those are all nerves. So you've got a ton in these areas, but if we zoom in, there's a couple I wanted to highlight and show you why I needled you certain places that I did. So up here at the top corner of the shoulder blade, you can see that, I might have to zoom in to actually be able to click on it. So this accessory nerve, it actually is what innervates your upper trap, and the upper trap frequently gets a little bit overworked, but if that is irritated anywhere along this pathway, you're going to feel irritation like all the way up into the neck, and then it will border this whole line of your shoulder blade. So that is kind of why I was talking about, if you only spot treat down here where you're feeling symptoms, so anywhere where this nerve goes, you're going to feel stuff because the nerve is what tells the muscle how to function, and it's what gives it feedback as far as discomfort. So now that you see that nerve and you know that your rhomboid is right over in this area, it's like it could be rhomboid or it could be this nerve. So nerve stems from way higher up, which is why I needled you up into your neck. The other nerve that I wanted to show you is your supraclavicular nerve. That one I didn't think was as in play with you, but it comes all the way out to the end of the shoulder. So sometimes people will feel like they've got like AC joint pain, and it can be contributed with that nerve. This guy, I'm going to take off some muscles to show you. Your dorsal scapular nerve. It also comes down and it goes right underneath the border of the shoulder blade. So what it does is it does motor for that levator scapula muscle I was just talking about, and your rhomboid minor and your rhomboid major. So when you are rolling and rolling and rolling on those rhomboids and it's not going away, its actual source of nerve supply is this dorsal scapular nerve. And if we're looking at where that nerve actually is, like soloed out, comes out of the neck. So yet again, that's why I was needling you in your neck. And then it comes down, and this is, well, just spin this guy around. Its pathway goes right there, side of the shoulder blade, and comes down. So you were way tender along this guy. So when I needled you underneath your shoulder blade, I was trying to have a pretty good impact on this one right here. Now, if we go back, there's a couple other options that I want you to look at. Let me take off more layers. Your suprascapular nerve is partly why that referral pattern when I was poking on your infraspinatus, when I said there's a nerve bundle right underneath where I was poking, that would be this guy. It innervates your rotator cuff. So that weakness of grip that I was talking about with you and having just a little bit of general weakness in the shoulder, your rotator cuff is made up of 4 muscles. So you got your supraspinatus, infraspinatus. This is the one that I was on that was real tender on you. Teres minor, and then your subscap is on the front of your shoulder blade. This one does all the rotating in of your arm. Can also definitely probably get pretty fatigued when you are climbing. So just wanted to give you an overview. Yet again, I don't want you to have to memorize all these things or feel like you have a nerve problem. A lot of times fatigue, neural tension, just things getting pulled funky can really play a role in feeling discomfort. And then as you can see, there's all these different nerve branches that go down the arm. But that is why I was there. Now, if we take off all the muscles and all the nerves, I wanted to show you the joint I was talking about. So right here where your ribs meet your spine is called your costovertebral joints. When all those muscles that we just pointed out and all those nerves are a little bit irritated, so like when you were hanging and rotating could have irritated a number of those nerves. They tend to make the muscles tighten up quite a bit, so you're feeling some of that tension. When they tense up, these joints tend to get a little stiff, so that's why I was just kind of rolling you on top of my hand, trying to mobilize those joints. Now, let's go on down to the hip, buttock area. Okay, so if we put on muscles, when you are talking about the gemelli musculature, it's kind of rare to have just a direct injury just to that without like trauma right onto it. But I say that you being a climber, your hips go in some really funky positions and have to maintain quite a bit of muscles turned on to keep you stable, to hold you onto the wall, to keep everything in place. So that is your inferior gemellus. This is your superior gemellus, and your obturator muscle goes right in between. So when I was over here on your hip bone, and then I was kind of right along in when I was putting some needles in, that is where those guys live. Now, the really common one that everybody seems to talk about with sciatica is this piriformis muscle, and I will show you why in a second. So it runs through this hole, and your sciatic nerve runs right through this hole as well. Glute min, just introducing you because I feel like you'll appreciate knowing where these muscles are and what they really look like. Glute med. So glute med has to fire properly to keep your hips stable, like when you're walking or when you're stabilizing yourself on a wall. That one was pretty tender on you and had quite a bit of twitching going on. And then with me add on the other big guys, there's your big glute max. Okay, everybody knows glute max. Now, when you're talking about getting a tennis ball and rolling, like your glute max is thick. Most people's are. I mean, unless you get those really skinny mini older ladies, most people have quite a bit of tissue. And just for reference, like when I am needling through someone's buttock musculature, I'm using a 5-inch needle, and most of the time that needle is going all the way in before I'm tapping on hip bone or anything else. Now I want to throw on the nerves real quick for you. So this big honker right there is your sciatic nerve. So as you see, it sits right under your piriformis. Some people actually, it splits the piriformis and goes right through the middle. Those people, it's kind of problematic. We actually on my cadaver lab in PT school had one like that. It was really interesting. Sorry, you can hear my dog. Hush. So the other branches that I was talking about that kind of come up and over into the buttock is your superior cluneals, but these are the ones that I was more hitting on you. Actually, it's underneath this muscle. One sec, you can't really see the one I was going for. Okay, this guy. That is the one I was going for. That's your superior gluteal nerve. It is what actually does innervation for a lot of musculature in your butt. So it does your glute med and your glute min and your TFL, which I have not shown you yet, but was also tender on you. Add one more there. This guy. So it also innervates that. Now if we take off that and go back, you also have an inferior gluteal nerve. It's not going to let me tap on it, I don't think. Here we go. This is your inferior, and it goes to glute max. So there's a lot going on, so I try not to get really black and white with this exact muscle because these guys fire in unison. So I just wanted you to be aware of what all was going on in there. Where I was needling was to cover all of these nerves around here. I also needled you into your low back, which beauty of needles is that all this white stuff is really, really dense. Like it's very hard to actually get through it with your hands, as well as this that comes down from your lats. So we're looking at multiple layers before we actually have this deep multifidus muscle. So that is where I was trying to get to, and then I also was really trying to actually get at some of these nerve roots when they are coming out spinal. So there's an overview. If that is overwhelming, don't feel like you have to learn or memorize any of that. But when you're taking your lacrosse ball to things, it's nice to just know what's actually there, what muscles, and if you get real nerdy and you want to look at like muscle fiber directions so that you know like glute med is going to be on the side, and when you go side to side, you'll feel those fibers a little bit more. Glute max is not up here at the very top of your hip. It's more that big muscle belly, and you'd have to kind of go a little bit more up and down to feel those fibers. So just wanted to give you an overview. Sorry, this is a little long.